So the Gospel reading for this Sunday, Matthew chapter 16, really is one of those kind of turning points, hinge points in the story of Jesus. And Matthew picks it up from Mark, but it is that issue of the turning of the what you could call the Galilean campaign. Jesus turns from that almost what looks like to be a popular uprising type of movement, a campaign, to this turning of the face, and in some senses maybe realising that this popular campaign strategy is not where it's at, not what's called to be. And there's the turning of the face. Jesus turns his face and heads towards Jerusalem. Because the realisation of the dealing with the powers that are against God in the world will not be that will not be won by a political and popular campaign in Galilee. It will only be done by confronting those powers in Jerusalem and taking up the way of the cross, as Jesus articulates. And so there's, in this story, you see this imperative. That didn't work. This is now what must come to be. And you do wonder about how long this has been emerging in the mind of Christ. And I think about that for us too. I think at times, we think we hit upon a strategy or a purpose or a journey and think, this is what it is, this is what God wants me to do, or this is the call that I have on my life, and you go and pursue it. But there is forever in our journey of discipleship a space of critical reflection, and a call to be that space, because truth is a bit more like an onion than anything else, and I think my experience is you think you go and do, and you realise you haven't got there yet, and there's another layer to what needs to be understood and revealed and incorporated into your life as a disciple of Christ. I know that's been my experience, and some of the things you think are the solution, well, they ain't. Part of the Project Plenty journey is going to be that journey for us too, as we live out our calling as God's people together. So Jesus shares this story, and he's just told Peter that you're the rock, and on the rock I'll build a church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. So this is the church that Peter, you're the guy, and this is it. And of course, Peter, hearing this story of the imperative to go to Jerusalem and to die and to suffer, can't handle this. So he moves from being the rock on which the church will be built to being the stumbling block, the rock that makes Jesus, that is kind of tempted there to make Jesus stumble, the scandal that he presents. And there's this visceral reaction from Jesus: "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have on your heart the things of God, divine things." So this is a really dramatic little passage, and it I think it draws out of, it's a window into the life of Jesus, the faith journey of Jesus, and it also is a window into us and how we as disciples play out our relationship with God in Christ. For we are confronted with this truth also, that how many times do we have in our mind, in our hearts, the things that are of God versus the things that are not of God? You and I live in a world where human things are the big dominant message. Everything we watch on TV, just about, the culture in which we engage in is predicated more and more on values that aren't the values of the kingdom, that are about the achievement of the self, and the self's freedom as defined by being able to do what you want to do and get what you want. And I was thinking about that, thinking, okay, divine and human things. Well, what are the divine things? How do we understand the divine things? And I have to say, for me, I get drawn to the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes. For there, Jesus presents this kind of new law, the new law of the new people of God. And I think if we want to really go into some sort of, well, what are the things that are of God? Then I would invite you to contemplate the Beatitudes. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who are poor. Blessed are those who seek after righteousness, after truth, after loyalty, after integrity. Blessed are those who seek to make peace between people rather than create conflict and division. Blessed are those who stand up for truth. Blessed are those who live lives of humility and of mercy and are ready to see things as God sees them. So, I think if we want to start thinking about, well, what are the things of God, then that's probably not a bad place to start for us. And none of those things are things for namby-bambies. Each one of these things take courage and take a readiness to step into places of where there is human suffering, where the gates of hell, where there is present that humans aren't experiencing the goodness of God, life in all its fullness. So I would want to put to you to be thinking about, if you want to live your life contemplating the things of God and not the things of man, then maybe we kind of ease off on TV and the media and everything telling us this is what you need to be fulfilled, and start to see how in our daily life we put into place the Beatitudes, standing up for truth, standing in compassion with others, living in humility, being merciful, seeking to see things as God sees them. So I just put that to you and be thinking about, how then do you interpret the world? How do you understand what comes to you? How do you respond to what you're called to respond to? That the divine things are, there's hints and stuff for us in the Sermon on the Mount if we want to pursue the things of God, not the things of man and things of humanity. I want to then pick up on this instruction of Jesus of taking up your cross. And some of you would have heard of me speaking of this over the last few years, and maybe this being my last time to share with you in this role, maybe it's it's serendipitous that I can revisit this theme that was really right at the start of my time as moderator. So let's turn and look at that question of what does it mean to deny ourselves and take up our cross and to follow Jesus. So Jesus says after this confrontation with Peter and after him speaking about what his journey will be, what he's discerned his journey is going to be, Peter then says to the disciples, I think in Luke he speaks to the crowd, but in Matthew, Jesus speaks to the disciples and he says, well, if anyone wants to follow me, then they have to deny themselves and take up their cross and follow him. I want to call your mind back to if you're a member or part of I think it was the 32nd Synod, when we had Brendan McKee, that wonderful, charming Irishman from WA, come over and lead us in the open space process that we engaged in that Synod. And Brendan spoke about this issue of the way of the cross and what is it. Now, Brendan, Catholic, and he came out, and he still is, in the Pace Bene tradition of Franciscan Roman Catholicism. So Pace Bene means peace and all good, and it's a part of the Franciscan journey and tradition within the Catholic tradition. And I found his reflection on the way of the cross incredibly compelling, because I'm a simple bloke and I need things explained. to me, and I need some sense of practicality about how do you do this? What is this all about? So let's just pick up and revisit that from those many years ago. The first point is this question around denying yourself. So this is not about giving up chocolate for Lent. This is not about the aesthetics that we're sometimes called into in discipleship, fasting, and all that kind of stuff. This is about letting go of your rights. This is letting go of your sense of what you think you deserve or what is due to you. The Greek kind of connotation to this is if you had the right, say, to a piece of land, or you had the right to some form of ownership of something, then that's where this deny yourself really kind of that's the context of the meaning of that word. So denying yourself is to letting go of what is yours by right. So it's not about giving up coffee for Lent or anything like that. Good that might be. It is about saying I let go of what humanly is my dues, my what's owed to me. And in that sense, it's a bit like baptism, really. You a sense of letting go of yourself and being lost in God. And then Jesus talks about take up your cross. And the Pace Bene tradition is a part of the non-violent tradition of discernment. And Brendan, for me, laid this out in a very clear and compelling way that seemed to me to be really, for someone trying to be a disciple of Jesus, quite compelling. So to take up the cross, to take up the way of the cross, was to live for the kingdom, was to speak and to live out what the kingdom is about. So there you go. There are the Beatitudes again, the divine things. So you start living and you start speaking and you start calling for those things to be a part of the life of your circle of experience, your circle of influence. And you articulate those things and you call out those things in the life of your community and the way you order your own life. He said, inevitably, then, speaking and living the kingdom and calling for it will invite some resistance, will invite people for whom the current order of things are quite good, thank you very much. They will not like that. They will enter into some kind of resistance to you. Gandhi, well, no, it wasn't Gandhi. It was said to be Gandhi, but apparently he was a trade union leader in the late 19th century, earlier 20th century, who was really the coiner of this phrase. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, and then they fight you, and then you win. And so this idea that as Christians we need to be getting used to the idea that we will be ignored and we will be laughed at and even fought against if we're going to live the kingdom in a way that's true to the life of Jesus. So there's a sense, if you're going to take the way of the kingdom, be prepared for that kind of level of resistance. And be prepared to be scapegoated, or be prepared to be mocked, or be prepared to have people rise against you for what you are standing up for, because the current order of things favours certain people and disempowers, marginalises and disfavours other people. And the fundamental truth of the gospel is that we're all children of God. And that we all have a dignity that our human society is called to respect. And where it doesn't, that's where the kingdom needs to be spoken and lived and demonstrated and called for. And some people will not like that. So this is that call to live it and to be prepared for the consequences of living it. But he also talked about the way of the cross involves the Garden of Gethsemane. It involves a time where you have to die to your own solutions. And you might think, well, this is what the kingdom's got to look like in this space. Well, for the kingdom to be emerged, the way of the cross is saying, sure, bring your idea to it, but be ready to let go of it too. Be ready for it to be informed by others, be informed by faith, by the tradition. Be ready for it to be informed, and that means your particular solution, what you think is the right way, the right thing that has to be done, you will have to die to. Like we really see in the Gospels where Jesus does the Galilee campaign and has to let go of it and has to turn and go to Jerusalem and has to go to the Garden of Gethsemane where he says, let this cup pass from me. So there is, in the way of the cross, and it's kind of paradoxical, a standing up for the kingdom and articulating of what the kingdom is, but also a letting go of how that's going to play out, a humility, a letting go. And there's that space then, after having been through all that of waiting and letting emerge what God calls to emerge. So that you see that in the way of Jesus. You see it in the early church. You see it as Paul speaks about what it means to be the church, to let go of what we think is the right thing and to allow God's thing to emerge. Because God's things will emerge, because God is present in the world. And that's Pentecost is what emerges after the church waits. And I think of the times and seasons where I've sought to be true and sought to then bring something forward to emerge that I think's the right thing, then it's blown up in my face. Or I've sought to help emerge something, and you realise that there just comes a point of time when you have to let it go and understand that God's at work here. And for me to push it further than I should is to actually get in the way of God. And that really speaks very truly to me, and that things emerge because God's Spirit's present in the world. So the way of the cross is standing up for truth, being ready to demonstrate it and live it, being aware that others will not like it and resist it, being ready to let go of that, whatever that final manifestation might be, and being ready to wait and to be faithful. So I don't know about you, but I find that really helpful about my daily life and about my work with the life of the church or my work anywhere, that at the end of the day I can bear witness, but I have to let go. I find that incredibly liberating, and I have experienced that new stuff has emerged because I've been ready to do that, and that level of kind of silence. So as we've kind of thought about this passage today, that issue around being ready to discern what you think is the right way and being open to hearing what another more challenging way might be, that's a part of the discipleship. Having on your mind the things of God, not the human things, and thinking about the Beatitudes, maybe a way in which we can explore what those things of God are. And understanding that the way of the cross has got some really practical steps to it. Speaking, of articulating, demonstrating, living, being aware of resistance, and being aware that at times comes a time when you have to let it go and let God emerge, call forward what God will call forward. So I hope that little reflection on this turning point in the gospel is helpful for you, and that as you live your life, and as you live your life particularly as a Christian community, in your family or in life of a congregation of the church or a ministry of the church, that readiness to bring and that readiness to let go and that readiness to wait will be yours, and that in doing that also will be the blessing that God wants to bring to you and to the environment in which you're living and ministering. Thanks for listening. Every blessing. Bye for now.